Hello and welcome to Growth Step. Today we're going to be taking a look at Google Tag Manager, and more specifically we're going to be taking a look at how you can use Google Tag Manager on your website. So using Google Tag Manager on your website lets you do various things and really gives you the power to do things without requiring developers. In today's example, we're going to be looking at how you can use Google Tag Manager on your website to create custom events and conversions. So as you can see here, we've got the a demo Growth Step website set up with just one button on it. And for the purpose of today's example, we're just going to use this one button, and we're going to be trying to configure the click of that button as a custom event and then a conversion, and we'll be sending those both to Google Analytics and Google AdWords. So firstly, before we begin, I thought I would just go through quickly what Google Tag Manager is and some of the key benefits of it. So if you don't already know, Google Tag Manager is probably the best way of managing tags on your website. When I say tags, I mean everything from tracking codes, so things like Google Analytics, Hotjar. When you sign up and register, they'll ask you to put a tracking code in your website. So typically you'd send that over to a developer. Google Tag Manager lets you put that lets you do that yourself. So some of the key benefits of it. So increases your agility. So we spoke about this briefly earlier, which is that it allows you to make changes to your website's tracking codes and tags instead of having to ask a developer to. So if we take Google Analytics as an example again, typically when you create a new Google Analytics account, it's going to give you a tracking code, and then typically you would send that tracking code over to a developer, ask him if you could please add it to your website. Then he might be busy, you might not have time to do it immediately, so it'll take longer. But with Google Tag Manager, we're going to do it ourselves, and we won't need to use any of the developer's time. The only thing that you will need from the developer is the first time when you install, create a Google Tag Manager account and container, he will have to, the first time, just put the Google Tag Manager code onto your website. After that, you can do everything on your own. The next thing is the integration. So Google Tag Manager has lots of integrations built into it. That includes things like Google Ads, Facebook, and lots more. So once you create your account, you'll be able to explore and see all the integrations that you can use. And lastly, it's very easy to collaborate using Google Tag Manager. So if you're working in teams, you can see all the current live tags, you can see who made what changes when, and it's a great place to work together on. So now let's go back to what we're going to be doing today. So today we're going to be running through an end-to-end example of taking a button on your website and using Google Tag Manager to record the click of that button as a custom event. That custom event will then send to Google Analytics. We'll then turn that custom event into a Google Analytics goal, and then lastly we'll be importing that goal into Google Ads as a conversion. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to go through how you install Google Analytics using GTM. I'll just refer to Google Tag Manager as GTM now, as it might get annoying if I keep on saying that. So we'll go over to Google Analytics. You click on the settings icon on the bottom left, and you want to head over to tracking info. So under tracking info, if you click tracking code, you will see that we have the tracking code here. And now this is where typically you would go, right, I need to go send this over to my developer so he can then add it to my website. Well, now you have GTM, so you don't need to ask the developer to do it, you can do it yourself. So we're simply going to copy the tracking code to your clipboard, head over to Google Tag Manager, and we're going to create a new tag. So we click new tag. Now it's really important that when we create new tags, we label them properly. It's very easy to just give them a quick random name, but later on you'll see that it's important because when you're actually testing, the name of the tag is actually what's going to be showing up. So let's name this GA tracking code. Then we're going to click tag configuration. So the snippet of code that Google Analytics gave us was a custom HTML snippet, so we simply choose that and enter it here. For triggering, basically what we can do is we want to be able to use Google Tag Manager on every page of our website, so we're going to click all pages, and that means that on each page of our website the Google Analytics tracking code is going to fire. Now we are just going to save that. Perfect, so that's saved. Now save doesn't mean publish, so now that we've saved it here, this is kind of in our local version, and we want to test out, and now before we publish it out we might want to test in preview mode, which we'll come on to later, and the preview mode is actually going to be a big help to us when we're setting up the custom events and conversions. But for now we're just going to go ahead and click submit to publish the Google Analytics tracking code. With versioning, again, naming is quite important, so you can look back and see, when you did what. So if I wanted to look back in a few weeks and see, oh, that's when I deployed the Google Analytics tracking code, I can just find it very easily. So here I'm just going to say GA tracking code added, and we'll do the same thing for the description. Description can be the same, depends, as long as you have enough information for yourself to know what you did, that's absolutely fine. So now we click publish. So this normally takes a couple of seconds. There we go, that's all published now. So if we head back over to our website now and hit refresh, so we're now actually on the website, so we want to make sure that Google Analytics knows, is connected properly and knows that we're on the website. So if we head over to Google Analytics, go to real time and go to overview, we should in a second see that there is one user on the website. Oh, there we go, we can see that it came through there. Let's just refresh this again so it comes through. Sometimes it can take a couple of minutes, so what we can do is we can come back to this and check it in a sec. But the Google Analytics tracking code is deployed. It's just a case of waiting for Google Analytics to catch up with us. So while that happens, let's go back to our workspace. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start the end-to-end example. So as I mentioned before, we're going to use the click of this button. Firstly, we want to be able to set up Google Tag Manager record clicks. Then we want to filter it down to specifically this click that we want to capture as a trigger. Then we're going to send that click of that button to Google Analytics as a custom event. And from there, we're going to convert that custom event into a goal. We want to convert that into a goal in Google Analytics because custom events are great, so you can see what's happening in real time and you can see the overview of events. But if you want to, for example, see all your traffic is coming in, you're getting traffic from Facebook, Google Ads, organic, and you want to see which ones are actually causing the most conversions. You want to be able to set up goals so you can easily see in your results. Right, from Facebook we had 10 conversions, from Google Ads we had 2, and so on and so forth. And also, once you create that goal, it's very easy to then import that goal into Google Ads as a conversion there as well. So the first thing that we're going to do is head back over to our Google Tag Manager, and we want to go to variables. So out of the box, Google Tag Manager will let you will give you certain variables, but you want to enable it to also record clicks now. So if you click configure and scroll down to clicks, we want to select all of these so that your clicks are now being recorded. So that's telling Google Manager that, right, we can start to listen for clicks. And next, what we want to do is we actually want to set up the listener, so we are listening to all the clicks, and then that will allow us to then filter down the clicks. So we do that with a trigger. So I've actually created this earlier, but what I'll do is I'll go ahead and delete this so we can do it again. There we go. So what you want to do is create a new trigger. Let's call it all clicks website, and for the trigger we're going to choose click so all elements of the click section. That's going to listen to all the clicks, and you can see here that we've selected all clicks. Later, when we want to filter down to a specific click, we're going to use some clicks, but for now we just want one trigger so we can find out what all the elements of the clicks are. That'll become a bit clearer later on, so if you didn't understand that, don't worry, it will become clearer later. So let's save that, and again, if we go back to our tags and triggers, you'll notice that we have 8 workspace changes. So again, this is in the local version. Now we need to publish this to the live version. So let's click submit, and let's give our version a name. So added click tracking, and let's publish that again. Perfect. Now that's published again, we'll go back to our workspace. And now what we want to do is to make sure that's working, we want to enter into preview mode here, or some people call it debug mode, to make sure that when we click around on the website, it's actually recording all those clicks. So if we click preview mode, we're now in preview mode. So what we want to do is go back to the website, refresh the page. As you can see here, now we get a nice modal that opens in the bottom, and this is basically what's going to be able to help us see if the clicks are being recorded, and then also understand the individual variables of each click. So first, just go and click around, and as you can see here in the summary, every time I click, it's recording a click. So that's all the clicks. So anywhere you click, it's going to record it. But we are interested in the click of this button. So if I click this button, you'll see that that was click number 14. So if you click on that, what we want to do is see the variables for that click. So let's bring this up slightly. So these are all the different variables for that click. So the unique identifiers of what that click has versus any other click. So this is what we're going to use to basically filter it down. And say that this click is different to all the other clicks. And so what we're going to do is go back to Google Tag Manager and create a new trigger for specifically the click of that button. So we're going to create a new trigger, and we're going to call this clicked, what was the button called? Clicked button. And to configure the trigger, again, because it's a click, we're going to choose all elements. So that's all clicks, but instead of using all clicks this time, we're going to say some clicks. And this is where you can choose what you want to filter the clicks by. So if we go back here, we can see that the click text, for example, is button. So if we take that, there's no other click where button would come up, so that's a great one to use for us. And we can go here and we can say let's choose click text equals button. For example, if you had multiple pages with the same text in the buttons, then you might want to add something else. For example, if you wanted it just for that certain page, if we go back, we can see that the page path, so it's that specific page, so / button dash test, so we could add this in as well. So let's add that in. That was page path equals, and just remember to be case sensitive as well. So I always find it best just to copy and paste directly from the preview and debug mode directly into Google Tag Manager, so that way you know that there's no mistakes that are going to be made. Perfect. So now what we've done is we've narrowed down from all clicks to a certain click that we want to track as a trigger. So we're going to save that, and again we're going to have to publish those changes. So we're going to click submit, added button click trigger, and publish again. There we go. So now if we head back to our website and refresh it here again, still in preview mode, so it's just refreshing everything. The form's loaded up, and the modal should be opening as well in a second. Let's refresh that. Sometimes it does take a second for the modal to open. There we go, the modal's open now. And again, so the form's loaded, we've got our button there. So if we click, those are all the clicks, and we can see that this tag has not been fired. This tag has been fired, so this is the Google Analytics tag that we created earlier, and as soon as the page loaded, that tag fired. So that's working correctly. But we're concerned with the clicks now. So if we click this button, we can see that there was no tags fired because we haven't created the tag yet. We've just created a trigger. But in the variables, you can see that the click text is button, and the page path is button test. So now let's go ahead and create the trigger. So the tag. So we've got our trigger, which we're going to use for the tag. And what we're going to do now is this tag is basically going to listen out for when that specific click happens and then send a custom event to Google Analytics. And before we jump into that, let's just go through what custom events are in Google Analytics. So I've got a slide here which kind of explains it. So events in Google Analytics are made up of four different fields. There's category, action, label, and value. You don't actually have to use all of them. You can just use category and action, but I like to use category, action, and label, just so I can differentiate different clicks. So when we're sending something over from Google Tag Manager to Google Analytics, we're going to have to say, right, for that click, what do we want the category to be? What do we want the action to be? What do we want the label to be? And then once we do that, we can then capture that as a goal later on. So generally, category you want to keep fairly broad. So if it's a click of a button, I like to use the standard category of CTA. If it's, for example, we're doing a different conversion and it was a page loading, you might put category page load. But you should keep categories the same. So for all buttons, you should use the same thing. For all page loads, you should use the same thing, and then use action, label, and action and label to kind of differentiate them. So let's keep moving. So now we're going to create our tag. So let's create a new tag, and let's call this button click event to GA. So we're going to configure the tag, and as you can see, there's lots of integrations here, and we're going to use the Google Analytics universal tag here. So we choose that, and what do we want to send? So what track type? We want to send a custom event, so we're going to send an event. And as you can see here, we can define what the category, action, label, and value are. So for the category, I'm going to say it's CTA, a call to action. Action is, what did they do? They clicked button, just because our button's label is button. You could do label as well. So for example, if you want to differentiate this from the home page to the pricing page or something, the home page you might have just / for pricing, you might have / pricing, but because we only have a one-page website, we're just going to leave this blank. Now, so what have we done so far? We've defined the trigger, so we've narrowed it down to only on the click of that button we want to send an event to Google Analytics. Now we're creating a tag, so we're saying when that trigger fires, we want to send a custom event. The category should be CTA, and the action should be clicks button. Just remember that this is all case sensitive later when you're adding this into Google Analytics. And in fact, what we're going to do now, while we do this, is go to Google Analytics and create the goal at the same time. It just makes things easier. So if you head to Google Analytics and go to Admin at the bottom left, and go to goals. As you can see, I don't have any goals here at the moment, so I am going to create a new goal. And so we're going to choose custom because we're sending a custom event. We're going to give it a name, so clicked button. spelling is not very good today. And it's a custom event, so we're going to select event here, and now we're actually going to tell it what to look for. So once we save the Google Tag Manager tag and it starts to fire when we click that button, what are we looking for in listening to capture? So the category we said was CTA, and if we go back, the action we said is click button. Sorry, that's my phone just ringing. And so now what we're going to do is we're just going to copy it across. So if we go to action here and paste that in, so it's matched, we know it's case sensitive, so we copied it directly, so we know that we're not going to have any issues. So that's all set, so we can basically go ahead here and save this now. Even though it's not going to work until we fire the tag, we can save this. Usually if you save the event and add the goal later, you can verify this, but because there hasn't been any events coming in, if we verify it, it will say 0%, but we can try anyway. There you go, 0% conversion at the moment. So that's all fine. We'll click save, and we'll go back to finishing the setup of the actual tag to fire the event. So we've defined those, and now we want to make sure that we link it to our Google Analytics account. So we click enable overriding, and then we'll need our Google Analytics tracking ID. So which analytics account are we sending it to? So again, if you go to admin, tracking info, tracking code, and you'll see that we have our tracking ID here. So that's again a simple copy and paste here. Perfect. So now our tag is configured. So this is telling it to send all the information, where to send it to, and now we just need to know when that information should be sent over, i.e. the trigger. So we'll click on triggering, and we'll choose the trigger that we created earlier, which is clicked button. So we choose that, and now we can save that. Perfect, that's all saved now. So again, let's publish, give it a version name, so added GA button click event, and paste that there. Perfect. So let's publish that and go back to our workspace. So let's refresh our preview mode, and let's refresh the page to test if this tag is actually firing when we want it to fire. There we go. So we can see that when the page loaded, tags that were fired were the GA tracking code, which we wanted to fire on all pages, which is good, but the button click event to GA has not fired because no one's clicked on that button. So now if we click anywhere apart from that button, it should still not fire. There we go, we can see it's recording clicks, but it hasn't fired. But if we click this, hopefully what we should see is the tag should then fire. So if we click, there we go, and now we can see that the button click event has now also fired, which means it's sent that event through to Google Analytics. We can check that. So if we go through to real-time events, we can see one event has come through right now. There we go, that's the event that we just created. So that's now all working, and basically what we've done right now is we have sent an event. So we've chosen a button on our website that we want to record as a goal in Google Analytics. We've then created a trigger, so we specify exactly what click of what button we want to send. We've said this is the information we want to send over to Google Analytics as an event. There we go, that's the event that's come through. And now every time that event comes through, we've also created a goal, so that goal will record each time that button is clicked. So effectively we've created a conversion in Google Analytics now as well. So when we look at things like traffic sources, so one thing to bear in mind is that once you create an event and a goal, there is a bit of a delay from when the data will start coming in. So for example, if you set this goal up now, when you check back tomorrow, you should start seeing your goal data versus different traffic sources. But it won't work immediately, so it does need a bit of time to click. It will start recording conversions immediately, but it won't display them immediately. Perfect. So that's end to end from a button to Google Analytics. Now the last thing that we're going to do here is we're actually going to take a look at how we can use that goal that we've created in Google Analytics and use it in Google Ads as a goal. So we go to Google Ads. I've got my empty account here. We can go to Tools and Settings, and we're going to go to Conversions. These are some of the old ones that I had, so I want to add. So I clicked import, and I'm going to import a goal from Google Analytics to use as a conversion. We're going to click continue, and two imported goals from Google Analytics. Perfect. So let's see what accounts are linked, because it didn't pull anything in, so maybe my Google Analytics account and Google AdWords account are not linked. Aha, perfect. That is because I am in the wrong Google AdWords account. So let me switch over to the right account and try that again. Perfect. And now we are in this account. I'm still in the wrong account. Let's switch it again. Sorry about that. This is the right account. So let's do that again. So we want to go to settings. We want to go to so this isn't actually available because I haven't set up billing. But what I can show you is that how you would normally do it. So if you'll go back to this one, if we wanted to import it from Google Analytics, we'd simply just go to Tools and Settings, go to Conversions. We'd simply add a new conversion and import the data from Google Analytics. So we click this, and then you'll basically see a list of all your goals in your Google Analytics account, and you'll be able to select that in and bring that in as a conversion. So that is end to end. So what have we done? Again, let's recap. So we've selected a button that we want as a custom event and conversion. We've used Google Tag Manager to send that through to Google Analytics as a custom event. We've then used that custom event to turn it into a goal, and then we've used that goal to import into Google Ads as a conversion. So you can do that with any button on your website. That doesn't even have to be a button click. You can play around with it. I think the best way to get to grips with using Google Tag Manager is actually just playing around with it. Obviously, if you have a live website, you might want to create a dummy website to play around with it, and have a go at it yourself. If you run into any bumps, what I'll do is I actually have all the steps written up in this presentation. So I'll post a link to each step that we just did in the video description below. And that kind of summarizes what we've done today. Some of our next videos are going to be looking at different topics. So we're going to be looking at more digital marketing stuff. We're also going to be hearing from some of the other team at Growth Step. So we'll have Connor talking about design, UI, UX, and branding. We'll have Danny, who's going to be talking to us about product. We also have some exciting interviews lined up. So we're going to be having interviews with industry experts in the startup world who will be able to tell us things such as we have Mark Knops, who will be coming on soon, and he'll be able to tell us about office space. When should a startup be looking for office space? What should they be looking for when they're looking for an office space? And what are the best options out there? So we'll have lots of exciting stuff coming up soon. So make sure that you like and follow us, and we'll be back with some more content very soon. Thank you very much, and take care.